I was thinking before we got on here, I love the way I end up meeting people.
Mm,
And just like on this one, I met you on LinkedIn and I felt a connection about what you talk about, what you're into. So, but thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, I love the way that people find each other and the way that connections come. Makes me think a lot of like mushrooms and mycelial network and just the paths find each other. And yeah, I'm really grateful to be here as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think what drew me was the whole fitness and psychedelics aspect of it. And I've been championing this for a while, but I hadn't seen anybody really put out both those things on their headline like you had for that. So I think it'd be a good background for the listeners to get an idea of both of those backgrounds and how they've come together.
hmm Yeah. So I would say that the fitness aspect has been there for most of my life. I loved doing sports when I was younger. Always really enjoyed being active. I was a very active kid. And as I started to learn more about fitness, more about the body and ways that supported my performance in sports, um, yeah, I just became really passionate about fitness in general and learning how to take care of my body in ways that help me show up in this world and the ways that I want. And so moving throughout my schooling, reaching college was a point where I really lost touch with all the really just health in general. Just stopped taking care of myself. I think that's unfortunately pretty common at that age. Going to school, it just can be challenging to find the time and the energy to be able to take care of ourselves. And so really lost touch with that. And that was also around the time that psychedelics came in. So it was like there was this like passing, okay, fitness is going to the side. And here is this new huge thing that's just impacting me in such profound ways. And I had an experience with LSD or acid, which was just such a turning point for me in terms of my self awareness and looking at the ways that I was showing up in the world and relationships and for myself. And it really had such an impact on me because I had been in this space of wanting to support people's mental health. I had the goal of going to medical school, being a psychiatrist, and I felt like these psychedelic medicines could play a key role in that. And I was also starting to see more research around that. And I went to a grad program to support my application to medical school, get me ready to dive into that world. And around halfway through, I just had this shifting point where I recognized again that I was not taking care of myself at all. And so being a person that wanted to show up for people and help them access a healthier, happier life, I wasn't even remotely connected to that in my own life. So I decided to lead the path to medical school with the hopes of going back to school ultimately to become a therapist. But in the meantime, I wanted to learn more about these psychedelics and the ways that they're helping people. They were a medicine that I really believed in. And at the same time, my capacity opened up hugely in terms of time and resources to be able to turn my attention back to the fitness world and start taking care of my body again. So it was really there that the two worlds came together for me.
Tell me a little bit about you before your LSD experience and you after. What were the biggest differences?
Okay. The first words that just came to mind as you asked that question was constriction to expansion. Like I had just been really in this place of so harshly judging myself and every move that I made, and it had to be perfect, and I had to do all the things. And in a way, I was like, I had these parts of myself that were like, yep, we're going to do it at whatever cost. We're going to make all this happen. While other parts of me were just hiding in the corner. This is a lot on my nervous system, a lot on my body. I was not taking care of myself or giving myself rest. And I had such a joyous LSD experience where I just had so much more clarity around what's important in life. And I accessed just a deeper sense of humor that helped me see through a lot of the kind of walls I had put up to just be like, yeah, it doesn't have to be so serious. I can enjoy my life. I can have fun. I can be silly. I can release the need to be perfect. So it was definitely an opening.
Do you think that's scary for people? I'm hearing you say that. It reminds me of myself in my psilocybin experience. I've been a pretty serious person a good portion of my younger part of my life. I felt like for mine, if it let me be like more humorous, like I never heard that. I was like, oh, that's like how I thought about it. Is that you think that's scary for people to explore that side of themselves?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially when we're in the place where we're navigating challenging times or really believing in our story that we have to be serious. Because of these circumstances, I feel I really do have to be serious in this moment. And maybe I can stop being serious soon. But because of situation and circumstances that I'm in right now, I have to be serious. And it's hard to release that story. And I think that, yeah, it probably would have scared me too if it was framed that way. I think it's something that has to be experienced in order to get the full depth of that. But I would think that also there's maybe something there that is appealing, especially for people who are feeling burnt out and in the seriousness. There's a little bit of appeal to let go and find the humor as well.
Yeah. I just love that you said humor. I had all these thoughts going through my mind about that. And then there's the thought, something we talked about off air, which is the relationship of psychedelics and fitness and how you relate to your body. That was really struck by that. Can you expand upon that a little bit and what you mean by that?
Yeah, definitely. And since our initial conversation on that, I've been really toying with it in my mind as well. And so many thoughts come to mind. But really what's coming through is in the fitness space, there is such a desire to achieve and to meet goals. And there's beauty in that. We're here as humans to show up and try to grow. And so there's a beauty in that striving. But I think that there needs to be a balance as well and a recognizing of the why behind what we're doing. And so for me, I can say that there were times where I had really convinced myself that I was living a super healthy life because I was working out 3, 4 hours a day and not eating anything that wasn't very specific to my diet. And the intention at that time was to change my body. If I can just get my body to a certain point where I can accept myself, then I'll be good. But of course, then when you get to that point, you have to maintain, you got to keep going. And then your window of tolerance for self acceptance becomes really small because you're like, I have to stay in this space in order to be okay. And my journey with psychedelics have helped me move into such a deeper self acceptance and self love than I've experienced before. And it's really changed the way that I approach fitness and exercise and all the health behaviors. And it's also really influenced the way that I work with people because I try really hard to keep a broad approach in mind where we're not just looking to get through a program so you can change your body in this way, but we're looking at how can you live in a way that really feels aligned and healthy on a holistic level.
Man, you're speaking a lot of truth right now. I think I had a very similar experience. I was a collegiate athlete and I was doing a lot of the same thing, working out like crazy for me in my 20s. And it was very body centric. And I feel like after my very large experience in my 30s, I stopped thinking about it that way, especially working with clients. I was like, is this really what they're looking for? Or is it what I've been looking for? And then I just started to disassociate with my body. And while I still like anything, I like to look good and I enjoy working hard, it's just less important at this point. Does that resonate a little bit or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, less important. I had a thought earlier just about getting into the headspace of this conversation and thinking about how I feel like I have just one foot in the fitness space. Like I'm very much trying to be grounded in a holistic approach. And yeah, it feels so much bigger and more important than just the physical aspect. So yeah, it resonates a lot. And something that came through when you were sharing that was a teaching that a friend of mine offered, which was just in looking at the desires that we have or the goals we have and recognizing that there is the root desire, the root goal, and then there's the symptomatic desire. So the way that it's presenting itself. And so drawing from my own personal experience, there was a while where it was like, yeah, if I just lose the fat in this one particular area of my body, that's when I'll reach self-acceptance. And then really becoming attached to that desire or that goal, when really that's just a symptomatic one of the deeper underlying desire to feel comfortable in my body, to feel accepted, to feel enough. So yeah, I think that psychedelics have a really beautiful way of helping us get to that root beyond the symptomatic desires of the ego.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Have you did you have any resistance to sharing your story with other people in fitness and wellness or just in general? And what did they think when you told them?
Mm. Maybe in the beginning, there was a little bit of trepidation there, especially when I was coming out of that graduate program in medicine. I just made all these connections with people who were on the path to go to medical school. And then I was like, okay, see you guys. I'm gonna go explore the psychedelic world. And yeah, there wasn't much sharing around that time of what I was up to, only with people I was close with. And yeah, and then there reached a point where I couldn't deny that psychedelics played such an important role in my own health and well-being that to not tell the full story isn't really truthful.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I think one of the things for me is I spend a lot of time just been like, you know what, I have to get over myself with this. And I just tell the story and I interview a lot of people in the space just to provide a permission for people, especially for me, like in being in the business for 20 something years. When I have talks with other colleagues, I think they're surprised, but also relieved when I talk to them about it. Oh, okay. But it's like the experience, it takes the veil down
Yeah.
a little bit. Oh, you did that. You did that, type of thing. Really.
Yeah.
It's a cool feeling, I think, to tell the story and release it for yourself and other people.
Yeah. And I love that you brought in the word permission there because there really is that where people are like, oh, okay, I've been curious to try it. And now that I see someone that I trust and admire and respect talking about it, I feel a little bit safer. I had that permission to do it. Or if someone has already had these experiences and has been afraid to speak to them, hearing other people share theirs offers permission as well.
Yeah. And I think that from humans, I think really, I think we're bigger than we are. It's this ego that we don't need this permission, but a lot of us do need permission to move forward. And the ceremony, the
Hmm.
rite of passage, whether it's someone telling you something or you're experiencing the transition of something, is a really powerful element of our experience for that. But how do you feel like your work in fitness and your work in psychedelics have merged together to create what you're currently doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. On one level, I see a sort of complementary relationship between the two. In our first conversation that you and I had, I was talking about the interesting dichotomy of fitness being all about being in the body and psychedelics are about releasing the body. But after stewing on that for some time and having a psychedelic experience, I sat in ceremony this past weekend. It can be profoundly bodily, just very much in the body. And so I think that fitness, exercise, these sorts of things can really prepare you for a psychedelic experience in a number of ways that are complementary. First being connection with the breath. The breath is so important in those experiences, especially when navigating some challenging stuff or processing emotions, because psychedelics can bring all that stuff to the surface. Being able to breathe through it is so important. And it was fitness that first ever really connected me to intentional breathing, and also the ability to sit with discomfort as it arises, and yeah, breathing through it, and also just being able to be present with it, thinking about having a hard workout and you're in this place very much embracing the discomfort of this is hard, but I'm going to do it. And then when you make it out the other side, you're like standing taller. You're like, yeah, I did that. And I've had that with psychedelic experiences as well, where you're going through the waves of all the things that come up and breathing through it. And then at the end, you're like, damn, I
Wow.
did.
Yeah. I never thought about it that way. Like the breathing I've thought about, but the discomfort I didn't think about because I think in mainstream projection of psychedelic experiences, it's that discomfort is not, to me, hasn't been talked about a lot. There's this, especially the first time, it's very jarring, extremely jarring. But I think if you have a fitness background and you've worked hard and you've had these sensations of feelings of overloading your body and being uncomfortable, there's a translation there because you certainly feel uncomfortable and weird. That part adds to the psychedelic. This is weirdness that gets
Yeah.
added in, and this almost disbelief, this reality shift, which you sometimes experience in fitness too. I have experienced that as well. There's a nice connection there, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. The neurochemical happenings in both, yeah, put us in an altered state. I would definitely say that exercise is a form of achieving an altered state. I have friends who do these really long barefoot runs and have talked about mystical experiences that have come up organically through that. Yeah, just a lot going on there. And then tying in how psychedelics can then help fitness or the health journey for a person. I mentioned the getting to the root desire and what it actually is that you need. I think that's really such a crucial piece, helping you get back into a place of what matters.
Yeah. I find that's been the biggest change in my practice in the last, I'm going to say 10 years with clients, because that is the lifespan of my beginning of psychedelics. For that is working with people and say, what are you really here for? I think you're here for to change your physical body. I'm not sure that's really the reason for that. And challenging people, challenging clients that this is much deeper than what you think it is in that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you take it deeper with clients in that way. Yeah. Just continuing to ask why. And the question is like, what is it that you want? Oh, I want this. And why? Oh, because I really want this. And why is that? Oh, because I really want this. Getting deeper and deeper into that self awareness, which I think really is what both of these modalities, fitness and psychedelics, can bring us to, is a place of self awareness.
What do you feel that, like, when you have these types of discussions? I know we mentioned before, we talked another time about presentations and things of that nature. What is it that you feel you're getting out of by sharing your story and the benefits of this medicine with other people?
Yeah. And two things come to mind. And one is something that I've learned in sitting in group psychedelic experiences, which is just the way that we humans can be mirrors for each other. And so I think that when we can share these things that we experience or that we go through that have been profound or confusing or uh, just big for us, being able to be witnessed in that and to receive a reflection back can be validating and can also help catch us in our stories or catch us in things, thought patterns that we've been taking for granted until being questioned by another person. So I think there's that value piece where it's just like helping me get to the root of my stuff and sharing my experiences and hearing others' experiences back. And then I think even more so, my why behind wanting to get the word out about these medicines and share my experiences with people is because when I found them, I was in a place of feeling very stuck. I felt like I knew the things I needed to do to be in a good place to get out of this depression and anxiety that I was experiencing. So, okay, I know that I should do this, and I know that I should do this, and that those will probably help get me out of it. But when you're in a state of depression, doesn't matter how much you know about what might help, it's that first step in action just feels so impossible. And I think that psychedelics can be really helpful in just giving us a refresh, a reset, a momentary break from the typical way the mind runs. There's an area of our brain called the default mode network, which is
Beautiful.
where it's really active when we're ruminating, when we're engaging in self reflection, or our minds are wandering, we're thinking about the future. And psychedelics downregulate activity there. So, in doing so, there's more of a widespread activation of the brain rather than just these very narrow thought patterns. And that can be everything for a person who is ready to make a change and just feels like they can't make that first step. And yeah, I want to share for anyone out there who's feeling like they just need something to be able to move out of this dark place that they're in. And I think
Yeah,
that beautiful tools.
it is this reality shift. I think Michael Pollan talks about that humans crave altered reality
Mm.
and altered consciousness. I'm a big proponent of that. I think one of the reasons why we reach, whether good or bad, for these different states is because being alive is difficult in many ways. And even if you look at sleep based research, and Dr. Matthew Walker talks about a lot of the benefit of sleep is to help heal the damage of wakefulness. And being alive is both beautiful and also somewhat damaging at the same time. And it so almost feels like this wheel that you're on. And sometimes you just want to get off the wheel. And there may be no greater way to get off the wheel than psychedelics, because it's just the altered state of reality is unlike anything that I've ever experienced or that. And I think one really great benefit is this closeness you start to achieve with other people, this vulnerability. If we talk about vulnerability, I know no greater way to achieve tremendous vulnerability with yourself and other people. And I was just hanging out with a buddy of mine on Sunday, and we've done a ceremony together, and we were like being very honest and very vulnerable at how we feel about each other in our lives. These two guys. I don't think that I would be having that with a lot of other people, honestly. And I think that closeness, that altered reality together, closest, that energy, that frequency was necessary for us to achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful that you were able to have that moment. And I'm really glad that you brought vulnerability into the discussion here. Yeah. Like you said, life can be really challenging, and there's damage that happens to the body, to the psyche, just by moving through the world, especially in a world that's just filled with so much chaos. And so there's a sense of needing to have a front. I think a lot of people feel that
Mm,
they have to have this front about them. Yeah, life is hard, but I'm harder.
yeah.
And having those spaces where you can get into a really vulnerable space is so healing, because in doing so, you're allowing yourself to be witnessed on a deeper level, on a more authentic level. And yeah, I sat in ceremony this past weekend, and just the power of being able to sit with people that you don't know and go through these experiences that are somewhat, you're depending on the experience. You may be mostly in your own experience in a group setting, but there are these moments of coming together. And even if it's not actively engaging, hearing someone in their process maybe start to cry. And then for me, that brings up emotions of my own. And then I'm starting to cry. And just going back to permission earlier, is like when you're vulnerable, you give other people the permission to be vulnerable. And yeah, it's a space where a lot of magic can happen.
I like that front that you talked about. I started thinking about like a storefront. What do you want people to see? And
Yeah.
it's often not what is actually in the store. Is not so it's like breaking that storefront and saying, "This is me. This is who I am." And I've said, I just interviewed someone else in the psychedelic space. people who've gone through ceremony, even once or several times, they walk differently on the planet. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, very much.
How do you interpret that?
Yeah, and I know you've said this before, but there's a piece there.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I'm sitting with what you said on the storefront. I think that's a great way to put it. It's what kind of marketing tools can I put on my storefront to portray the exact image that I want to get across? And then, yeah, it doesn't feel very good when the inside doesn't match the outside. Um, and so when you can do that work to accept yourself in this new way, to process experiences that you've been holding on to, whether they're traumas or limiting thought patterns or all these things that you can work with in the psychedelic experience, I think you can cl- you can move toward a place of wholeness where it's like you're feeling less fragmented. And when you're in this place of wholeness, you have a clearer idea of who you are, what you're trying to be in the world. You find more cohesion between the inside of the store and the front, the way that you're being perceived by other people. And I think it's just, yeah, there's a resonance there. It's like moving out of a dissonance of, yeah, dissonance is a word that's coming through for me because for a long time I had put together what I felt was the perfect storefront. I had the exact image I wanted to convey was there. And then I was inside hurt that no one was really seeing me for who I was, but I wasn't letting people into that. So there was that dissonance of, yeah, here's me when I'm all by myself. And then here's me when I'm in the world performing. And so I think that people walk differently when they're able to merge those two and live from that authentic space.
I think to add on that, I just think you stop performing
Yeah.
and you stop that performance
Yeah.
because I was telling one of my business partner, I was like, a lot of life is just marketing. Like most of it's just marketing. Everyone's marketing themselves and it's hyper marketing through the digital storefront of social media and all that stuff. It's all marketing. Everybody's in this race to market themselves to do something. And that's like, I would wonder if some objective third person or someone from a different part of our galaxy or whatever came by. I'm like, what do these people do? Like, they're great at marketing themselves.
Yeah.
They're performers. And I feel like you learn very quickly you have to perform and you have to market yourself. And to me, the greatest, and it's fitness is a great aspect of this because a lot of fitness is marketing yourself, the look, the feel, and it feels very fabricated quite a bit. And I just think you stop performing. That was my biggest thing. It's just to stop performing. I was like, listen, this person that I've been is going to live authentically in my practice. Whatever comes of that comes for that. So this performative nature, I think, dropping that show becomes a large part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Feeling the permission to not try so hard to
Yeah.
perform. Me.
Yeah.
Another thing that's coming to mind is just the interconnectedness of you with others, with nature. Like that really comes through in psychedelic experiences as well. And I think helps with that performance piece because there's less of I have to perform to be like the most stellar human. Um, and it's instead just recognizing, oh, we're all in this together. We're all living this weird existence on earth.
Mhm.
We're all trying to get through our days. We're all trying to show up in a way that feels good. And when we don't have to perform as much, yeah, we can just really drop into that awareness of things are how they are and find flow with it.
Yeah. It makes me think of a conversation I had with a client today. They're like, how you doing today? I said, oh, it's good. It's like a typical day for me. And they were like, does that mean you want to change things? I said, no, I'm just okay with it. I feel like it is what it is. It's a day and I'll move through this day. And I acknowledge that it just feels like a similar day to me. It doesn't make me want to change it. I'm just like recognizing I'm in it and I'm in my life. Like, that's the other thing. I think sometimes you don't recognize you're actually living your life. Like, I don't know what that sounds weird what I just said. I know it just, does that makes sense?
That's
Like it's controlling you instead of you're living in it. No, I'm living in it. This is a day. Is it the best day? No. Is it the worst day? No, it's a day. I accept that. Versus just life is just crushing you regularly or whatever. Oh my gosh, what's happening? I need to change this. I don't know. At first I was like, is that weird what I just said?
no, it makes total sense. It's like finding flow with the current of life. Like if
Yeah.
life is moving like a river, if you reach a point where all of a sudden you deem the day you're having as bad or needing to be
Yeah.
changed and like thrashing to get to the bank to get out of it for a second, uh, the life is going to keep moving and you're going to really tire yourself out by resisting it, or you can flow with it and
Yeah.
find your balance by.
Yeah. I think that that flow has been really important to me. And I see that in other people. Like I was telling my therapist the other day, I was like, I see the performance in people like vividly now. Before, I think I just was moving through and now I'm like, oh, this is a performance. I don't see it. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm always like, I want to free people from that performance now. And that's why I feel my work with fitness is such, it is almost a shamanic based work that I feel I do with people. It doesn't look like it, but underneath, that's my goal with
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, that intention is there to take things deeper.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
Like each session for me is like a ceremony for
Mhm.
me. I'm sitting in ceremony with each person that I have a session with. And this session is way more than their bodies and my body. It's our frequency together. And that was one other huge thing from my first psychedelic experience is seeing the electricity and the frequency of nature and all things. That was freaky. It's like actually seeing a tree, the
Mhm.
nervous system of a tree, like seeing it for real. I was like, whoa. And I remember I watched the movie Lucy and they show that part where she sees the tree and everything is moving like a highway through it. I was like, oh, I've seen that. I was like, I've definitely seen it. That's
Yeah.
real. I was thinking that's real. That's
Mhm.
actually real.
Yeah.
And that frequency, that all the interconnectedness of all things. Why do people love the ocean? Why do people love mountains? That's like, it became very clear to me after
Yeah.
that. It wasn't just a feeling. I was like, oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Mm. I love that those are 2 examples that you brought forward because I mentioned I had sat in ceremony this last weekend and it was a 2-night situation. And one of them, I was just experiencing deep ocean, just like in the ocean, just recognizing the stillness and the quiet and translating that to my need to allow myself to rest more. And then my next experience was that in the soil underneath a root amongst the roots. Yeah, I just love those examples because the interconnectedness with nature is just such a big piece of it. During one of those nights, I saw a shooting star outside and the mind goes, "Oh, make a wish." And and was just like, I hope that um I wish that I'd be more present with these moments because when you slow down, wildly beautiful, miraculous things are happening in nature and in life just all the time. And we're often not slowing down enough to witness it. So I love the way that you said turning a session into a ceremony. Just, yeah, to anyone listening, just like exploring how you can bring ceremony into your life and
Yeah.
make seemingly mundane moments powerful with presence and being in flow with it.
I think that also like adding to that, like once you've come from that state and you accept yourself, you start seeing the miracles in other people and you start seeing people differently. You see their beauty. Even if they don't see it, you see it in them. And you start to really, I don't know, at least for me, is I really try to like show it to them and tell them, like being very open. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you that you're wonderful and that you are here and you showed up to this ceremony. And
Mhm.
each time you showed up, you have compounded interest in your life. You've become better just by being. And that just how we speak to each other. changed quite a bit for me. Or I was never like bad about it, but I just was like, now I'm like very open about it. So when I see things in people, I go, oh man, I noticed you. Like, like with you, Lacey, I saw your profile. It made me feel something. Like, and then telling the person that really made me feel something. I need to talk to you. Like that, I think there's the storefront. When you have a big storefront, you don't want to tell people that because you
Yeah.
think they're going to judge you. This person's a weirdo. Look at this. I'm like telling me they don't know me. Like they're saying all this stuff. I'm like, I'm just acknowledging your presence, how it printed onto me. Yeah.
And there's such a deep medicine in being seen. And there's going back to the idea of permission that comes with it too. When you're able to see the beauty in a person who's maybe having trouble seeing it in themselves, just that little bit of permission of, oh, okay, I'm not feeling great about myself, but he's saying that I'm wonderful. And you know what? Yeah, I am pretty wonderful. And it does open you up to the space of self acceptance.
Yeah. Isn't that's incredible? It's just, I don't know, I've learned so much from my journeys, and I tend to take quite a bit of time between my experiences just because it's gigantic for me. I need to spend years processing it. It just happened. You know, here. So that buddy and I were talking about that. He's like, I may be ready to go back in. I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I feel like I'm inching closer to a really big thing. And my hope is that I think in the fitness business, we could really start something different in what we're doing. And that's why I like when I saw your profile, it was like a media electricity to me. I see a lot of people's profiles. I'm like, okay, it's great. And I was like, oh. And I think part of my experience is giving me permission to reach out with people to people with no fear, to just erase the fear that may exist with reaching out. And I don't know you, but I'm really into what you're into. Let's do this thing together. I have never met you. Like,
Yeah. Mm.
that's a beautiful thing to me. I embrace that wholeheartedly.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's been a huge piece of my journey with psychedelics is working on that fear. I've always had such a fear around reaching out. And yeah, it's something that I've wrestled with in a lot of journeys. I'm just like, wow, where is that coming from? And can I offer myself the trust in myself to reach out and not be so fearful? And yeah, I'm glad that you reached out. It's always a great reminder to reach out. And if I'm ever feeling the like call to reach out and have fearful parts showing up, just sitting with those parts and then offering myself permission to reach out.
Most definitely. I want to, in wrapping this up, learn a little bit more about where this is heading for you in both of these spaces and how you potentially see yourself operating these spaces in the future.
Mhm. Yeah, I had mentioned that my approach is very holistic, and so I see just a deepening of this process. You had mentioned that you like to take time between experiences to really process, and I'm very much the same way, and am a firm believer in the integration process. And so I see myself, or what I'm moving toward is offering containers of growth and transformation beyond just the personal training, beyond the fitness, but looking at the whole person and recognizing where the sticking points are, helping people navigate those in a container of compassion and being supported. And if they're feeling called to experience psychedelics, I hope to be a person who can offer education and support around preparing for journeys, figuring out if a journey is right for you, and helping people find what medicine may be more appropriate for what trying to navigate and work through, and then being able to support them in the process afterwards. So, what was it that they drew from the journeys, and how can we work to ground those into your daily life in a way that helps you sustain the growth and transformation that took place. And in that, I weave a lot of the body in, because I think that our culture tends to disconnect a lot of people from their body. They're living a lot in their mind. So as I work with people in processing their journeys, also bringing in elements of movement, which will look different depending on what the person's looking for, and deepening the connection with the breath, and all of these elements, the way that you nourish yourself with food, just all of these with the core intention to help you live a happy life, really, to live well, to live
Yeah.
aligned, and to be in a state of self acceptance.
Live aligned.
Mhm.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I think that encompasses my journey to a T. My first experience drastically altered my view of nature, drastically. And ever since that experience many years ago, I've been on a journey to live aligned based off of that experience. So my feelings about nature, I became an avid gardener, just an avid gardener after the process. I became very in touch with animals and animal welfare. I had none of this before, zero. So we're talking about change. I'm talking zero interest in any of this. They became like a fire lit for me. And then everyone makes different choices for how they nourish their body. Then I became plant based, and it had nothing to do with health for me. It was all just nature and feelings for things and living things. And I just allowed it to happen. I never tried to stop it. I just wanted to be aligned with this deep internal feeling. And that's what it feels like. What you're telling
Yeah.
is your business and your work is uh, aligning yourself and aligning other people to be okay with the life that they believe in themselves, and they believe in the beauty of themselves as well.
Yeah.
And that is, there may not be much better than that. Thank you so much, Lacey, for being on. And I'm excited for some things we're working on together.
Yeah. Yeah. Me as well. I really appreciate you extending the invite, and just have really enjoyed exploring the overlap of these worlds with you, and look forward to what's in store.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lacey. And man, I can't wait for people to listen to this. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Me too. Thank you.